the front. If you look around, the idea of natural surveillance, what we were talking about, if you look around, your expectation of somebody seeing you is pretty high. As you step in toward the property, there's not a whole lot of expectation that the person on the property, the stuff that we actually have control of, is stuff that we actually have control of. The things that we could have done to increase the natural surveillance from the actual property hasn't really been done here. So you look at the opaque blinds. It doesn't look like anybody can see out and see us here, but what you do have is the neighbors that are able to see into this property relatively well, and we'll go over that in just a second from the exterior. So the things that we can affect here is increasing natural surveillance from the inside of the house. So going to an opaque blind here, going to actually just opening up the blinds. If you have the lights off inside but the blinds are open, they cannot see inside. As much as you feel like they can see you, it's the same thing of that 3-year-old climbing into his bed. They can't see me, so I'm safe.
What about nighttime, with the light inside being brighter than outside?
And that's where you're going to actually control that. So if you don't want people to be able to see it, and they do have this level view, then certainly close the blinds if you feel uncomfortable with that. But to have blinds open in a room that you are not occupying, or that you really don't care if people can see you, is beneficial, because that natural surveillance exists at that point. And if they think you can see them, then whether you can or not, that's what you're going for. Okay, so if I'm standing here, I've got house, not so much there, and then nothing else for the rest of the street. So what I'm relying on is these two houses here, and they've got the opaque blinds there. Yeah, that's perfect. I don't know if there's somebody behind that's looking out at me. But I could do the same thing on this property, and now I got it from both sides. And then now I would own this whole front end of this property. From here, once I step into the property, I've just lost all of that, and that took 10 feet. So now I can sit here and assess what I want to do without an issue. Another thing that we talked about was the territorial reinforcement. And I showed you the picture of that property where I couldn't tell where the people should be. You got kind of the same thing going here. You got a doorway here, and you've got, which doorway is your front door? Okay, so for me, it's difficult to tell which one I should go to. So if you've got somebody who doesn't know, they might spend a little more time than they'd really need to up here. And if that's the expectation for your neighbors, then that's not necessarily good. So. I understand that this is a garage that you've converted, yeah. So it's difficult to deal with this type of a situation, but to set it up so that it's obvious that's your entry point, whether you have some sort of I don't know, like some plantings or something like that over there, and what you're doing is it's called a celebrated entryway. So you're making it like an archway or something like that, so that it looks like that's where I should be in order to come to this house. Like I said, this is not where I wouldn't come to this house to the front, so we'll probably be focusing more on the back. Another thing that we were talking about is this is a perfect spot for that driveway sensor, driveway alarm, because once I step to here, if I don't think that these people right across the street are looking at me, I feel pretty safe. I feel pretty safe that I can be doing what I want to be doing. The other piece of it is this lamp up here is called the Cobra head lamp. They're pretty yellow light, not pretty as in attractive, but pretty as in relatively yellow, and they don't spread off of the street very far, and that's intentional. So I wouldn't expect that light to throw much light to me. So this space right here, from about where I'm at back, I would expect it pretty dark at night, if not even further up, before I hit this light here. So once I step back into here, I'm pretty safe as a burglar or as a bad guy. So this would be a good spot to have one of those. It's just a little chime you'd hear inside. If it's a squirrel, it's a squirrel, but you can set them up such that it's less likely that a squirrel is going to hit them.
What about a motion detector light that's up on the peak of the?
Yeah, and that would be another thing that would be possible. Okay. I was bringing up. We had talked about those driveway light or driveway sensors. So this would be a decent spot for that. And if the neighbor has an issue with those, with a motion detecting light with their window there, then you'd have to kind of work it out with them, or adjust it such that it doesn't spread out into their neighbor or into their side. So we'll go around the house this way and then go into the alley, and that's probably where I'll be talking the most. So one of the things that I noticed here right away is that this is perfect. This is exactly what you want this to look like. It's below the window. There's no expectation that anybody could get behind there and hide behind there. It's not. So this is it looks fine. It looks great, but it's not blocking any view, and it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It keeps people away from the wall a little bit. One of the things we didn't talk about today is something called hostile vegetation. This is generally underneath low windows is a good place to have plants that look just like this but have thorns, or they have prickly leaves. There's lots of different types of plants that you can use for this type of a situation, but this is a good place to have a plant that's not very strong, that's hardy but not physically strong, so it wouldn't be able to hold people's weight, and is thorny, is just unpleasant to touch. And what that does is it makes it less likely the person is going to try to climb over that in order to get into the window. So hostile vegetation is a good principle to remember. So possible places to hide, I'd probably trim these up a little bit so you can see up and around it, but not a great big deal. Motion detecting light is a great thing here. And are those lights? Is it one and then the other? Are they separate?
I think
two
they're
motion sensors on that.
I don't think so. I think it's just the one motion sensor.
So again, transparent, semi-transparent blinds would be beneficial on here. She has a there is a peephole. If you don't have a peephole in your house, I would recommend getting it. A what? A peephole. The ability to see who's on the other side of the door before you open the door is a huge security benefit. So put a peephole. It should be low enough that the shortest person in the house can reach it, and your front porch should be lit well enough so that you can see the face of anybody on your porch or at the bottom step of your porch, because people don't always stand right here. Generally, they give you a couple feet. They give the swing of the door, whatever. So your expectation should be that somebody can see you from this far out. Okay, and this light's perfectly fine. One of the things that is also good to have is a light that can't be unscrewed. A light where it's enclosed, so that people can't just swipe it. There's actually a gentleman who's not sure how many have actually been taken, but he said that his floodlamps keep getting taken because they want to smoke weed in his alleyway. So they just take the bulb out of his lamp. So yeah. So now let's step off to the side here.
I think I used to do something.
The other thing is with this light on, that address is very well lit. That's great. So it's very good for emergency response, whether it be police, fire, ambulance, to be able to know your address. And for somebody who is on the sidewalk, who has no idea who you are, to be able to say they're at this house, climbing in this window. I recommend having somewhere. A lot of people do it on their somewhere closer to their garage. Full address, even if it's just 8626 31st Southwest. But somebody doesn't know what block this is. They're walking their dog. To have it somewhere, especially when we get back to the alleyway, especially on your trash cans. Especially on the alleyway because that's even more difficult. And I've chased a lot of people down alleyways, whether it be in my patrol car or God forbid running, and I've gotten lost because I hang a left, I hang a right, and I'm 3 blocks from where I was, and that's usually where it ends. But I mean, it's so for us to be able to use the resources that you give us is huge. And for you to give those resources to whoever's in your neighborhood as well, who may not know the neighborhood or know specific houses as well as you do. But when this is lit, that's going to be really easy to see from the street. Another thing that's beneficial is to actually mark the curb, so that probably closer to your driveway. so that if same type of a thing, if somebody's out on the street, they can identify it pretty easily. Okay, so coming around the corner, a little bit of the same lighting possibilities. You lose the little bit of light that you're going to get from throwing off of this, the cobra head. So I would expect this to be a little bit darker. And looking at the natural surveillance, it actually is worse here than it is in the front of the other side, because there's a straight shot to their window. When I step back here, I got all the windows closed. I've got a camper in the way, and I've got a storage room here that I can tell nobody lives there, nobody's there. So, so if rather than having it like that, that would be better to have an opaque blind across it, because then I don't know. But with seeing the boxes there, I know that nobody's there. So if there was a transparent blind on that, then that turns into a possibly occupied room. Right now, it's definitely not. So right now, I feel completely safe looking at that and looking right in that window. Lighting here, this would be a great spot for a motion light. How you throw it depends a lot on your neighbor, but I mean, I would probably throw it backward in this direction, just because if I hear something and I come out my front door, it's going to be in their eyes, not mine. So, and it really depends on how you react to or how you use your property. If I'm in the back more, I would shine it from the back to the front. If I'm in the front more, I shine it from the front to the back. So, just something to think about. You know, same thing. This could be hostile vegetation, not really necessary. This side, I would put. This is another one of those thresholds, one of those territorial reinforcements. For me to stand here and to look in your window here, I'm fine. But if I were to step into your flower bed here, if there weren't any plants in here and it was just grass, I'd have my feet all over that without any issues. But if you had some low plants here that were obviously maintained, then that backs the person off of your house a little bit more. And it's little bits here and there.
So if you have windows, like a lot of neighborhoods have lower windows,
Yeah.
you know, what would you do
As far as what?
as far as
Well, what I'm not doing. I'm not worried so much about them being able to see once they get to this point, whether they're here or whether they're here. It's not. I'm not worried about their visibility, how well they're going to see. What I'm trying to do is if there is if there's vegetation here that is maintained, a person is less likely to step into it and is less likely to damage it.
It was a poor question. Let me ask you. So what kind of security do you recommend? That people have low access windows, they're right on the ground.
Is the question around basement windows
Yeah,
that
basement
open
windows,
in?
They're just basement windows in general.
Okay.
It doesn't matter
Okay.
if they open in or out.
I just want to make sure I heard the
Yeah,
question.
no, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Okay, that's going to be. There's going to be a lot. You're going to be using all of the same principles. It's more a matter of getting visibility on that window. You know, the same. It depends on how the space inside is being used. Whether it's something where you're going to be using a semi-transparent blind just so they can't see whatever you got stored down there. But you're going to use all of these principles to make it uncomfortable for them to get to that point. So there's, you know, you could even do like a low fence, low type of fencing type of a setup, so that it's difficult even for them to climb if they wanted to climb down into that. But it really depends on the space and how you use it and how you expect to be able to see the world through that. So, but a little fence would work. Some vegetation would work. It depends on how it's set up.
Okay, thank you.
So let's sit on this back. I love these fences, these gates, because this one's actually really quiet. But when you hear this thing, you know somebody's going through it. And it's a very distinct sound. When you hear people. about you? Okay, so now the next thing we're gonna think about in the backyard is natural surveillance. Most well, yeah, most people, they set up their backyard because they want to feel secluded, but the bad guy wants that feeling as well. So once he gets through what's here, he can pretty much do what he wants and not feel uncomfortable doing so. And that's where, you know, this back fence, for the fencing to be that decorative fencing we talked about, for this to be a space that kids use, that's great. And but without the kids being there, you don't have that. And again, this one window here could do a lot of that for you. This fence being a little bit shorter and getting some other windows, visibility on those windows up over there. Also, sometimes fence next to you, there you go. The fences have fence up to a certain point and then some sort of screening or lattice above that still allows that upper section. And this house here, they've got a couple of windows facing this direction, which would
Right
be
into
usable.
the yard.
Right, it would be usable. So,
That's the best. Yeah.
so
But yeah.
and another possibility is to take these hedges and actually cut the hedges from the ground up 4 feet or so that you can see if somebody's walking by, and so that there is some visibility through. It's not necessarily that people can see, but it feels like they can see. So, and it's like we talked about. And then the same thing with the windows here. They're relatively small, but there's no expectation that somebody's going to be looking at it. So that transparent blind. The nice thing about transparent blinds is you can put that transparent blind and then an opaque blind, and you can't tell. It just looks like it's a dark room behind a transparent blind. So if you combine the two, then when you're occupying that space and you feel like somebody's encroaching on your space, you can just pull that transparent blind, that opaque blind, and your transparent blind never has to change. You can pull them both open, pull them both closed, however you want to use it. But using them in combination is usually the most versatile and effective way to use them. So let's walk out to the alleyway. Okay, so this would be a more likely direction of accessing this property, in my opinion. We get kids wandering down the street, not so much, and then they go through the alleyway, and that's where they actually make entry into the properties. But from here, the full address on your trash cans is helpful. It's helpful for us. It's helpful for whoever's reporting an issue. And to do it both on the trash cans and if you do it on the back fence, it's also helpful. But that's just mark your property so that the people can get emergency response or can get what needs to get there as soon as possible. So if I can say that this was right here, there we go. I didn't see that before. So that's great. Makes it much easier for police and fire to deal with what's going on here, to get here quickly and effectively.
So John, would you even advocate like putting the address like on the fence?
Sure.
Okay, so that if somebody was just a neighbor doing a walk going by, then they can say they went in this address because they wouldn't know otherwise what this address
Right.
was.
Exactly.
Or maybe if the bin was there. But, yeah.
And we get calls all the time where they say, I'm in an alley and it's the blue house with the brown fence, and that and it's nothing on them. That's what they know. So if they just don't know what address they're at, then they try to give us as much as they can. So if we as members of the community can give them a little bit more by doing something like that, this would tell me that this number actually tells us quite a lot. It tells me that if I know I'm in West Seattle and I get that number, there's this strip of space that you can be occupying. But now I got to guess which street you're on. So if you add just this number here, it just turns it into a point, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. So just something little like that can make a lot of difference in certain situations, and it's really not much work in order to do it. So if we were to cut these up to the bottom of this gate, it allows the light through there. It just makes me feel like somebody knows I'm here. So whether there's kids back there or whether I can see that somebody's back there, that kind of makes me feel like somebody can see me. Whereas right now I don't have that. So you got the slats on the fencing over there. You got just really no windows back to this piece of the property, and that would be a huge benefit for this property as far as CPTED visibility and people feeling like they're visible. The other thing, go ahead.
There's one thing that John hasn't mentioned, and I have an alley light. $69 a year, and they hang it right on the pole, and I can choose which direction that alley light goes and which pole. Anyway, I've got it in the back, and it discourages an awful lot. That's a hidden area right there. And I have one of those in my alley, and we have found 3 stolen cars in that hidden area in the 33 years that I've lived there.
Do you have any neighbors or anyone here that has cameras in their alleys?
I would just suggest that, like motion light, talk the neighbor into putting the motion light, cost him a couple of bucks. That protects this whole space. I don't want to come here when the light comes on. Because this alleyway is a perfect place to go shopping. Just drive right down real slowly, check out into the windows.
Absolutely.
It's all blocked up.
Yeah, West Seattle has, you got scrap metal thieves that can kind of justify it. They say, nah, it was just junk in the alleyway, when in reality they're climbing over fences in order to get it, and they're just slowly going down alleys just like this one, and seeing stuff. These fences are pretty substantial compared to most of the ones in West Seattle, but they'll just reach right over and swipe the stuff. So.
We're seeing on our street alone on 36, probably 80 to 90% of the theft is in the alley. That area, it's just amazing.
And getting eyeballs out to the alley is a great thing.
Keeping that in mind, so when you have your recyclable, you toss your bills in there. Okay, this is identity theft.
Yeah.
Okay, this is clean identity theft unless you're shredding all that stuff. This is free shop.
So I had a question about, before I had heard you talk about this, it would seem to me, I can see that I'm staying back here and I don't think anybody can see me, and I understand that part of it. But if I was trying to get in, it kind of looks like a fortress to get in, doesn't it? Oh no. Guess not.
No, there's an opening right there.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Just wide open right here.
Oh,
Yeah.
So once they get in,
then nobody can see them.
then
Yeah.
nobody can see them.
Because that's right behind the touch.
And one of the things we talked about when we had the last presentation was on protecting my kids by putting, once they can get in, it's the opposite. Now there is no protection. You don't have any of that natural surveillance that's possible by having your neighbors see your kids. And if your neighbors can see that somebody that they don't know is talking to your kids, and they can give you a call. You've got a good block watch going, and they can just call your cell phone and say, hey, there's a guy I don't recognize talking to your kids. Then people are going to go crazy, and the guy's going to disappear pretty quick. So, but if you don't have that, you lose a lot of the abilities that your block watch provides. So.
John, isn't this fence problematic in that it's got basically steps for someone to climb over it? Because I mean, I could get over that.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's
that's.
see that.
After the demo.
I think you've got enough enough
Yeah,
ways to get
okay.
in.
I mean, just right here it looked like, how would you get through that? But yeah, I don't.
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is if it wouldn't make more sense to put the boards on the outside of the stringers.
That's a design question between neighbors, and we see it all the time. If you build your fence first, you get the nice side, and that's usually how it works. So it's that's just how it works out. And that's another reason that having the decorative fencing is nice, is because there is no nice side and not nice side. Is
The see-through fencing.
Yeah.
We're party out here.
Right.
Thank you.
So. So one of the things that I would have done designing this fence is I would have left bigger gaps in order to allow that visibility, allow people to actually see through that. It's not gonna improve the visibility from your neighbors from an extra 30 yards away, but it is going to, if somebody's standing right here, you can see the movement, you know somebody's out there, and then you're alerted, and it's the same thing we were talking about back at the precinct. We were talking about if you're in your house and you don't know anybody's there because you've got those opaque blinds down, then they're in a position of advantage. But if you have those transparent blinds and you see somebody walks past it, now you're in the position of advantage because you get the police on the way, and they don't even know that they've been noticed.
And the people we're talking about, they don't want to be seen.
And that's typical of West Seattle. We've got West Seattle is primarily property thefts or property crimes. They want your stuff, but they don't necessarily want to be contacted by you to get it. So if we can make them think that they're going to be contacted, then they're more likely to pass your house off and keep on going.
So, and what happens is, a lot of times they work in teams. Their teams work like this. There's somebody at that alley, somebody at that alley, and somebody's walking through. And if you see cars that are parked, and you don't recognize them with the motors running, they're looking around, that's telling you they don't belong there, and they're shopping. They're shopping in your neighborhood.
All right, let's head back in and go to the back door.
Go ahead.
You think you can do that? Let's see. No, I'm sure you can.
Quick tangent.
Yep.
Quick tangent on the slide fencing. Is it also put down a tagging?
Well, decorative fencing you can't tag. It's just wrought iron. It's basically wrought iron. But yeah, if there's the smaller the canvas, the less likely they are to be tagging it. So there's some strategies where somebody will actually paint texturing onto a wall. They'll paint some sort of a grid pattern, or they'll create smaller spaces within that large space, so that the tagger decides that they don't want to bother with it because all they've got is this little area to tag, and it's relatively effective. But what happens? There are ways that they have gotten around that by literally painting a big blank spot and then tagging on their paint. So we can have as many strategies as we want to try to deter it, and they're going to come up with something else, and we got to come up with something else, and it's just going to be this back and forth thing. And that's how it's going to be forever. Okay, so as we're coming in here, everybody come all the way to the door. So there's a floodlight up on top here on the outside that hits the yard, and that's fine. It's not the best. The best way to light an area is to light it based on people, based on trying to get facial features, trying to get descriptions of people. So my focus here, that to me looks like they're trying to light so that you can keep on playing for a little bit longer, as opposed to identifying a person in your backyard. But the lighting in this area, to me, would be so that I can identify a face from 15 feet away. So if I look out my back window and I see somebody screwing around on my hot tub, then I can tell what they look like and tell what clothing they've got. So that I don't associate that with home security lighting. I associate that with being able to play a little longer in the summertime. Yeah, absolutely. That's not part of this system. So, looking at how many neighbors can see me right now, there's a lot of ways that I could increase the visibility here. If this were moved farther back in the yard, it doesn't look like it's attached to. It looks like I can actually get a little bit of a view into the neighbor's yard. Just kind of open this up a little bit more, because the last slide on the presentation is your back door or a back entry point is most likely the place that a burglar is going to try to make entry. Aside from an obviously secluded area, your back entryways, and so this is not set up the best way that it could be, I think, for that. So
It is for a hot tub.
it is great for a hot tub, and that's really the point. Is that we have to give some and we've got to take some, and so we've got to give up a little bit of our secluded, nice relaxing area in order to get a little bit of that natural surveillance for that security. But the other thing that we can do in that case is we can have, the rolling blinds that you can just have hanging down right there, and it's instant seclusion. But then when you're not using it, pull it back up so that you now have that extended visibility, that natural surveillance. That
My neighbor's set up on theirs is it's kind of like a Japanese kimono type thing, and it's kind of like a I don't want to say a garage door type deal, but it's wooden. It slides out on a rail and then slides back in. It's not as long, I don't think, as they'd like to have it, but it's kind of that same principle type thing.
With your information, I would mention one other thing. If you look on that wall, you see the telephone box where the telephone wires go into that. It's down here, nice and low. So if you can, get the phone company or to have somebody come up and move it up so it's higher, because that's just a walk-by snip, and plus that's an old box that should be at least a lockbox. Not that one, that's the cable. The one further to the right still has a bell on it.
Oh yeah.
Might be a collector's item at this point. Yeah. but that's a little low, especially if you have your phone or you're running your computers through that, and that's where you're running your phone through, or even the cable box here, if you're running your phones through your cable.
So we kind of skipped over the shed. The shed actually looks great. As far as the lock looks pretty secure. I probably would cover the windows. There's really no reason not to. That's one of those things that they can see what's in there. So there's no reason for them to be able to. And then just have just like a simple blind that you can pull back up when you're going to use the space, so that you've got good lighting in there. But that actually looks well built. Looks like, aside from the possibility of somebody hiding back there and jumping the fence and being back there, the actual unit looks good. So now we'll kind of finish this off and come back out this way, and now we're working on pretty much natural surveillance issues. One of the things I would do at this point that actually was brought up, I think Karen, you brought that up, was I would put gravel from here all the way across. What that does is as they walk, you're going to hear them, and it actually goes quite a ways. So your neighbors will hear them, and if your neighbors know that you're out of town, if you've got a block watch going, which I know you do, then your neighbors will know that nobody's supposed to be back here, and then that'll pique their interest and increase that surveillance of the property. You know, the way that it looks like this fence was built before the wooden fence, and it looks like this was up there prior to. So this fence, it almost doesn't even need to be here. The aluminum fencing here that we've got, you can almost take it out, because at this point it's kind of just a climbing rack to be able to get up out of your property once they've done what they want to do. Sorry. So yeah, so this isn't even necessary at this point. This aluminum we've got here, and if you were to move this back, it would make this feel like it was a lot more open, like it was a lot more visible, even though it really isn't. Okay.
Well, excuse me. I was just wondering about the locks. You said people don't put the best locks on their back door. Is there anything you recommend, or?
Well, treat it like your front door. I mean, there's no reason to have a
Deadbolt?
Yeah, absolutely. A deadbolt and the normal access, and to have them keyed the same, that's fine. It's just you know, to have a deadbolt available.
So this is probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's great. No, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. The deadbolts. When we get inside, we'll go over the locks and that sort of thing. But mainly, what we'll talk about is locks and windows, and then blinds, but not too much. So, and really, that's the only other thing is if you put gravel in here, that'd increase the sound coming out of here, and
Yeah.
so here to put a planting strip in here doesn't make any sense just because of access. So this is fine how they've got it set up. It makes sense. Okay, so let's just go to the front door and talk for a moment about locks and door frames. I think everybody should probably be inside looking out to see this best.
Okay.
Well, I'm for these too, because we're, we don't have renters quite yet. We get it pretty empty, but not reality. So thank you very much. Oh, yeah, no lights.
Okay, so the peephole, great thing. It is a great thing to have. The lighting, the way that the front door is lit affects how that.
You can come in. It's just us.
So, so the way that your front porch is lit really affects that. So to have it set up so that you have good visibility and good lighting all the way down to the bottom step is good. The biggest thing that we're seeing with the deadbolts is the deadbolt throws out about an inch, and this is fine. This is adequate what it normally is. But usually what happens is what it's doing is it's going to push against this metal plate, and that metal plate is pushing against these screws. Oftentimes those screws are only 3/4 of an inch long, and so all that it's going to do is just rip that right out of the wall. So generally, when a door is kicked, there's two ways that it usually goes. One is that the deadbolt hasn't been bolted, and it just knocks this clumsy little piece here out, and this actually just breaks out of the wall, out of the door. The other way that it happens is the deadbolt is locked, and these screws are so small that they just rip out, and this whole thing just pushes the door jamb out. So it's very rare that the deadbolt, the door side of the deadbolt is what gets actually breaks. So if you can actually take, there's like 3-inch screws that you can take, replace these with those 3-inch deadbolt screws, and they go all the way into the frame of the wall. So they're going to have to be taken out, you know, two studs before this door is going to go in, and it's hard to get in one of those doors. So even this 1 inch is plenty. They've got longer, they've got bigger and better, but if these screws are the weakest link, they're really ineffective. As far as your door goes, the best thing for you to do is replace these screws if they're less than 1 inch long, and I would go 2.5, 3 inches long with these things. So, and it's very, very inexpensive to replace that and get a lot of benefit from that.
Is there a type of deadbolt that's like the deadbolt on steroids type deadbolt? It's not like the basic deadbolt.
To be honest with you, the deadbolt up to a certain point doesn't matter.
Okay.
What matters more is the door frame.
Okay.
Because kicking the wood out is a lot easier than kicking out and
Okay.
destroying this piece of metal. The metal is gonna survive. What it's gonna do is it's gonna break its way out of the actual door.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have this completely intact deadbolt that's sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. We see it all the time.
Okay.
And the people who kick in the doors aren't necessarily big folks. I mean, there's little tiny kids that just take 2-3 good kicks at it, and they kick it at the right spot, and it goes.
Okay.
So, but you wouldn't be able to do it if you had these screws replaced with those 2.5, 3-inch screws.
Okay.
Another thing is the windows. Let's look at what we got for. So one of the things we can do with the windows is, so these windows have the double locks, which is fine. There's some of them that have a little lock. That have a little lock down here. Those, what they allow for is a little bit of ventilation, but there's a lock that they can't reach, so they can't stick their arm all the way across here and unlock that little latch. So if you're purchasing windows, having that little latch is a good idea. One of the problems with some of these windows is you can actually, this one's fine, you can actually lift them up and just lift them right out of the window frame. And if that's the case, what you can do is you can get just a little strip of wood, and you just put the little strip of wood up on the upper side of this frame. What you're going to do is you'll make sure the window's in, because if you take the window out and put it in the whole thing, you're never going to get it back in. So leave the window in, slide it, and make it about as long as one side, slide it up there, and then put it halfway. And then you just screw it in, or even gluing it in is sufficient. All it's doing is keeping it from allowing the window to rise up. This one is right on the verge. But I think there's a roller under there. We're getting in the way anyhow. Yeah, there's a roller on the front side. So that's not possible with this one. Some of them are. And another thing that would be handy here is if you did want to get a little bit of ventilation, to get a dowel and just take the dowel, and everybody knows about that. You take the dowel and you cut it to the length of a reasonable amount of ventilation for your property, so that nobody's gonna get their hand in or do anything that way. Cut it, leave it, and then if you want to open it all the way, you just rest it up against the side and open it all the way. You're fine. Do you have any wooden windows? Are they all replaced with this?
No, they're all replaced.
Okay. If you've got windows that have that lift upward, like the wooden windows that lift up, they're old single pane. I don't think you can have those anymore. But one of the strategies, one of the strategies with those is actually to have a dowel, and when you close the window, you drill a small hole at a downward angle, and then when it's closed, and then you slide the dowel into that hole, and it's impossible to pull it open. Even if they break the window and they're able to unlock it, they're going to have to climb through the broken glass in order to get into your house, instead of popping the window and opening it and then having an easy entry. The other thing you can do with that is you'll take the dowel out, raise it to whatever elevation you like to have it for ventilation, go into the same hole and drill another hole, and then put that dowel back in. And what it'll do is it'll keep it from falling, but it'll also keep them from being able to lift it up any higher. So, you know, an inch or two is perfectly fine. And that's an older idea that really isn't very useful anymore. So that's where we're at. You know, as far as I think as far as how the house is set up, we've gone over most of the exterior stuff. The only other thing that I can say is don't present your wealth at your front door. If you stand at your own front door and you see a laptop and you see, you know, a change drawer and all your keys to your cars and you see a big screen TV and you see, I mean, it's not necessary to present that to your front door. And it's not necessary to present it to a front open window or a bay window in the front of your property. If you can associate or set up your front room such that you're not presenting it to whoever's at the front door, to the guy who's selling newspapers or the guy selling magazines or candy or whatever they're doing, or just the guy who's knocking on the door saying anybody home, and then comes up with some reason that he doesn't want to talk to you right now, but might come back later. So if you go to your own house and you just open your front door and look and see, do I see things that I could pawn? And then that being said, anything that you have in your house, that's worth, that has a serial number and that is identifiable, or even if it doesn't, you can etch your driver's license number onto it, and then keep a record of all the things in your house. I went about 4 or 5 months ago, I went to my house and did it. It took about 20 minutes. Does not take long at all. I just ran around with a piece of paper and I said, this is what it looks like, this is the serial number, and then I typed it all up real quick. And what I did, that most people don't do, is I actually printed it out. I didn't leave it in the laptop that they were going to steal anyway. I printed it out and I put it on the bottom of a drawer somewhere in my house. In case of a fire, I'm done anyway, but I would advise that you find, if you've got a safe deposit box, or if you've got a neighbor who, you know, if your house burns down, it's not likely that you're both going to, but have a neighbor that might be able to store it for you, or put it in a Ziploc bag in your freezer, because the freezer is usually the thing that survives the fire.
I've heard also people taking pictures. I mean, the thing that lasts the most in life is what they say, acid-free paper, right? But also taking digital photos and then just sending them to your Hotmail account or something like that, somewhere in the cloud. Sure. But having at least something like that. Do you recommend also taking a video of your items and then put it in a safety deposit box? Or
first and foremost is a list with serial numbers. That's gonna beat a video anytime. Okay. There are ways for us, if you know the serial number of the item that was stolen, and we find it 6 months later, when we're doing a search warrant for in a burglar's house for something completely unrelated, it's going to come back with a positive hit for your property. You will get it back if we locate it. If you don't know the serial number, you are not going to get it back. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. There's just no way for us to be able to identify it as belonging to you. And there are hundreds of thousands of Xboxes out there. So for somebody who doesn't want to take the time to get their serial number, it really is your loss, because you make it very difficult for us to then track it down, unless we see the guy running down the street like we did yesterday, and I mean, we saw the guy running down the street, we saw him throw some stuff into the bushes, we took him, we arrested him, we found the stuff. This doesn't happen. I mean, it's so incredibly rare that happens. But what happens more often is we contact people who are doing things that are no good over and over and over again, and we contact them for different reasons, or they pawn the item, and that item and the serial number is recorded for some reason. Then it gets tracked back, and we can track it back, and we can get the item back to you. It's possible if you get a serial number. It is nearly impossible if you don't. So video, not really necessary. It's okay,
Sure.
It's more for fire purposes, more for insurance purposes, I think.
Right.
But for police purposes, a list of items,
Yeah.
a list of serial numbers, and if you etch into those items your Washington driver's license, makes it super easy for us, because then we just say, well, we know that he did this exact serial number, and I can do a search for your Washington State driver's license, and even if I find it in a stolen vehicle, I can take that item and I can run your driver's license, and I know exactly where you're at, and your license isn't going to change. So if you move to another house 10 years from now, I can still get your stuff back to you. If you move to Wyoming, they can run your driver's license, but they won't be able to run a serial number for something that was stolen in Seattle. So even if you have serial numbers, I'd recommend you put your driver's license information, WA, standing meaning Washington, and then your little space, and then your driver's license number. Okay.
So John, are they still calling that Operation ID?
Yeah, it's some people still use the term. It's not. It's just there isn't as far as I know, there's not a push or a group that's doing Operation ID specifically. I mean, do you know of somebody? Yeah, that's the term for it. It's kind of like Blockwatch, Neighborhood Watch. I mean, there's what 20 different names for Blockwatch.
Just don't use your social security number.
No. The driver's license number really doesn't have anything that they can glean from it. There's actually they can get the first 5 of your last name, first and middle initial, and then it's a bunch of random numbers. It's a couple random numbers at the end, and those random numbers are actually pretty important. So there's using code, certain code, we can figure out some other pieces of information about you. But there's two or three random numbers at the end.
I thought it was one.
It's just one?
In the middle.
There's a...
There's usually 2 at the end.
Yeah. So anyhow, but that information that they get, I'll find more on Google when I try to search it for you than they're going to find with your driver's license number. Social security number, don't do it. Don't do phone numbers and all that. And they can actually locate you, and they can actually there's information that they can find if they have that information. Any questions?
I pointed out that the back door has a deadbolt with a nice panel of glass very close to that deadbolt. That would be an ideal place to have a double cylinder deadbolt where it takes a key on the inside as well as the outside. And because all you have to do is break that panel, reach around and open the door. So the deadbolt is really kind of, if there's nobody home, it doesn't do anything.
Well, if you increase the natural surveillance in that particular spot,
absolutely
then
it would.
breaking that glass is going to be less likely.
Right.
And so we combine all these different things, and the more of each thing that we can improve
absolutely.
At that specific location, the better. If we can improve 1,000 times, it's not necessarily going to completely solve the problem, but it's going to do something positive. So, and all these things, they work off of each other. And that's another important thing to think about.
Just a word of warning, as a former fireman, if you're in the house, either have the key in the lock of a double cylinder deadbolt lock, or don't even lock it. Use the regular lock only. Because if there is a fire, hunting up the key can be a problem. And you'll want a way out.
So that's the presentation.
Great.